Hello, and welcome to another edition of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement. I am here at the News Forum where all voices matter. Just how bad is Canada's capital flight crisis? Here to explain is our guest, Charles Lammam. He is an economist and a contributor to the Hub online publication. Welcome to Boom and Bust.
Thanks for having me, Tony. Appreciate it.
I guess the first question is if we can just start off with some facts. What is going on with respect to capital investment in Canada currently?
Well, there's two separate but related issues. One, in my view, we're seeing capital leave the country more than it's coming in, and so that's the foreign flows of investment. And then secondly, when we look at just at Canada and our performance on investment, our businesses are not investing um, enough to arm our workers with the tools and technology that they need to be productive and to earn higher wages. So it's a bit of a two-sided problem: the foreign flows and then the domestic and lack of investment. And this has been happening for about 10 years.
So, can you maybe explain to our audience why this is the case? Why Canada hasn't been more successful in this regard?
Yeah, so just maybe start with the macro picture. So when we look at those foreign flows that we talked about, the so-called capital flight problem, we are now at a juncture where we're seeing Canadians invest more in foreign jurisdictions than foreigners are investing here. And it's to the tune of about $1 trillion on net. Back in the past, but before 2014, roughly we had our companies and individuals, our pension funds, investing abroad at roughly the same amount that foreigners were investing in Canada. And so there was a gap that kind of gets created 10 years ago. And now we're at that point where in total, we've got $1 trillion deficit when it comes to foreign investment. And then similarly on the domestic side, we've seen business investment on a per worker basis collapse over that same time period, where our workers just don't have access to the same tools and technology that workers have in other countries. So essentially, we're asking them to be productive with one hand tied behind their back, and this is happening very uniquely in Canada. When you look at what's going on in the US, over the same 10-year period, investment per worker has gone up by 26%, adjusting for inflation. In Canada, it's fallen by 16%. And even looking at other countries, whether it's the euro area, whether it's the UK, they're all seeing gradual increases in investment per worker, and we're just not seeing that. So the scale of the problem, in my view, is pretty significant, and we've just really kind of scratched the surface, because that investment crisis that we talked about is not just happening with machines and equipment, which is important. Those are the things that drive productivity. It's happening in our intangible economy, when it comes to investing in IP, when it comes to investing in innovation and venture capital. We're seeing the same type of crisis occur straight through all the types of investments that we should care about when we're thinking about economic growth, when we're thinking about driving our productivity.
So let's peel back the onion a little bit further. So is it our
Yeah.
taxation system, our regulatory system? What's the culprit here?
Well, look, when you have Canadian workers accessing 55 cents of the dollar of business investment compared to their American counterparts, and then you look at the alarm bells that several organizations, including the Bank of Canada, have rung on our productivity crisis, it kind of makes sense. Some people will point and say, well, look, after 2014, we saw oil prices take a hit. We were dealing with a pandemic a few years later, but all countries around the world that are also resource intensive were
Mhm.
dealing with similar problems, and they have not declined the same way we have. So for me, we have to start thinking, okay, well, what's going on here? And look, I'll give the prime minister a lot of credit. He made
Mhm.
a speech in Davos. He's signaling to the world that Canada is a stable place to invest. Um, and that's good. We need the sales pitch globally,
Sure.
but we also need to match the rhetoric around selling Canada with the policy framework to make capital more attractive to come here.
Right,
And
right.
right now, capital doesn't care about sales pitches. It cares ultimately about, yeah, is the tax system
Sure.
competitive?